Hello everyone and welcome to yet another live coding and chill. I'm your host Johnny, delighted to be here. Hope you're having an amazing week. Let me know what you're up to. What I did was carry through to what we were talking about last Friday and actually publish a game on itch.io for the Game Maker's Toolkit GameJam. It's a game that you can actually find in the description and you can go play yourself. And as is tradition, I'm gonna try to go through it live and see if it actually works or if we've failed spectacularly. So the big thing is that expect very, very little. This is basically a very modest snake collectathon type of game, and without further ado, I am gonna give it a show here and then we'll talk about the agenda. It's a quick game, so why not? You can actually find the link in the description. Go there, give it a go. Let me know, is it any fun, is it not? The idea is that you're Scully, which is a mech, built to scale. We'll talk about the game some more later. And Scully can collect the treasure, and when it collects enough treasure, it is gonna shed some scale. The scales are super valuable, but also they are super sturdy. So if you actually hit one of them, it's game over. So Dead Souls, Souls-like style, we're being brutal with what we're allowing here. One hit gets you. And I guess the first time you play this, maybe it's not gonna be super clear whether you're supposed to take the drops, the scales or not. But hey, that's all the time that I had. And so you have the eggs, hit them, done. Sorry, that's it. Cool. I'll stop playing my own game. Controller support should exist, but because we've embedded with like HTML, I think you need like extra permissions here. If I publish this on Steam, which I will not because it's like too small a game or something like that, then controller support will be there. I think during the actual stream, I will be playing with a controller because my keyboard is too loud. Right, so that's it. That's the game. Go there to play for yourself. Devlog, interesting. I may do it later. So all of this is for the Game Maker's Toolkit GameJam, which has a humbling amount of amazing games that I'm definitely going to be playing and rating and all of that to help the project, because I'm sure if there is like 2,829 entries, well, at least 2,800 of them are gonna be better than the game that I managed to make. But guess what? Over 32,000 people joined and less than 10% managed to submit something. So I'm proud of that. This is the first game that I've ever put in the world that's not, I guess, JavaScript based, even though we did embed it as HTML in the end, I suppose. So I could probably make a better version of Snake with JavaScript and using canvas and stuff. But it taught me a lot of things that we're gonna talk about today. So after this quick demo, let's update the agenda here and talk about some fun stuff. So usually we do web development here. I'm a principal software engineer. I've had quite a career, if I may say so myself, and I'm quite good at web dev. People would say I'm more of a front-end person and get that feedback all the time, but I think it's because I mostly saw front-end stuff, because I think that's where the fun is. When you show to someone else that the thought bubble appears and they see it on the screen, that's when they clap. They don't clap when you're like, oh, this is like the most efficient algorithm in the world. I brought it from like ON square to like ON. These are impressive to other nerds, but to regular people, I do think the front-end world is more exciting, and that's why I saw it more in the videos. But what I want to show is that we've done quite a lot of live streams in the past, a few short videos as well that do take a lot of work to make, but you should definitely give them a watch. I try to make them as efficient as possible, help you learn, because I legitimately want to get even more people into software engineering. But you may notice that we've managed to do more live streams this year than we did in the past whole year. And we're still in August, so we have a ways to go yet, and still we've beaten our record from last year. So mostly web dev, mostly front end, mostly Svelte and SvelteKit on the front end, but still we do experiment with many other things. We've done a few Vision Pro stuff, for example, when that was all hot. And the past live stream was going through a course by GDQuest with 3D game development in Godot. In the end, for this GameJam, I did switch to 2D. I did switch to another GDQuest course to get me started, and ended up with the game that I just showed you. And we'll develop a couple more things here, so maybe a better game over screen. I definitely want a sound effect and an explosion when you lose, because now there is just nothing the game over screen shows, but that's a prime opportunity for a fantastic explosion and a sound effect. So we'll do something there so that then we'll try to add high scores, so the game should remember what your highest score ever was, and tell you whether you've beaten your high score or not. Maybe in the future we'll do like a speedrunning type of thing, where people can submit their scores online and you compete with each other. That's always fun with games. But we'll see. We're starting humbly here. And I've got links in the description about GDQuest, the great team that is doing free YouTube videos, but also has some lovely courses that I used to make what I made today and what I was on the previous live stream. And let me know if you want to see me go through more of their content as they make it. I did submit to the Game Makers Toolkit GameJam. Game Makers Toolkit is a fantastic YouTube channel that talks a lot about game design. Not really the best game of the year, but the best game mechanics, different styles, different art. It's so excellently complex and diverse in what it talks about within game development that I cannot possibly praise it enough or explain what it does. But what they also do, besides also making their own game, the Magnet game, they also do GameJam every year. And this is the first time I've ever put a game out for anything like this. And I think I'll try to do it again next year. I did go to the page with all the submissions here. I did mention again that maybe a few more people, maybe we'll get like 10% people that have actually submitted the game. But everyone says this, and firsthand I realized that it's important. It's very important to get a game through. I'm sure that almost all of these games are going to be much better than the game that I've made. But simply going through the process here may allow me on my free time to make a better game next time. And maybe we will rendezvous next year for GameJam 2025. Maybe we'll be doing SvelteKit every week until then, and then we'll take a break and make a truly awesome game for 2025. We'll have level up. Who knows? But it is important to be realistic and get the game out. The things that I learned, I guess I'll have it somewhere else here. I'll talk about my takeaways, even though using a starter was a bit of a takeaway as well. In web development, I do use my own starters. Nowadays, you may call them boilerplates or something like that. And I do make them available with JOHNNIFY Premium, actually. You can find them, and I think they're like tons of value. I think there is... It depends on how much people are paying you to create their app or their website or whatnot. I always use them whenever I take a contract or even do an experiment or prototype for a consultancy, and they do save me at least one day, which may mean, you know, $500, 1,000 euros, 2,000 pounds, whatever. It depends on your day rate. Really, it could be 100, could be nothing if you're doing it for a friend. So I don't want to oversell this, but I came to realize how important starters are for building games as well. And they could be your own starters because you've started with a little snake game like we did today. And then next time I'm starting a game, I will have something that does have an end condition and a game over screen, and I can start from that. If it is a 2D game, it will have a splash screen. I will know how that works. It will have controls. Now I'm using the gamepad. I will know how to set those things up. There will be code to play the sound effects. There will be quite a lot of things that I will be able to take over to the next game. And therefore, I will be able to slowly build my own starter as well. But what I've realized is that there are some quite excellent starters in the community, in the Godot community in general. I knew of Kenny as someone who makes amazing assets. And I've been following Kenny ever since I found they were doing amazing assets for 2D, but they've expanded to 3D assets as well. Lots of low-level stuff here. And they even have starter scenes for Godot. So after you've seen my end result game that I worked hard to create over the weekend, like 3 days of work or however long it took me, let's have a look what one of the starters, the Kenny starters, look like. So if I go back to Godot and load the 3D platformer starter, let's see where that gets us. That's where I got inspiration on playing the coin sound as well. So we have this, looks a bit small, but you can change that. How do you jump? P. Oh. So you have a 3D platformer with like falling platforms, coins, sound effects, lovely character, bouncy character that does deform nicely. You can restart the level immediately. You can double tap. So many things. I would say that this starting point, this starter, is better than the game that I ended up making. And if I were to spend like 3 days trying to expand upon this, I would make a much better game. But at some point, you just don't know what you need. You don't know what your resources are. So when your goal is to manage to release a game, you will inevitably encounter all those things. And the important thing is to not feel overwhelmed and be like, oh, what's the point of me releasing my silly snake game when the starter, this thing, is miles better than the one I'm gonna make. That's not the point. The point is that you have to go through the process to make your vision come to reality realistically and have someone else be able to play. But if I knew of this in advance, then maybe I would have started from this. Hindsight is 2020, of course. You will never know what you won't know, which is why, again, it's important to put yourself in situations where it's like, oh, I'll make this for my friend's birthday. Oh, I'll get into this game jam and I'm going to release a game no matter what. And now suddenly I've leveled up in knowledge and I can start from a better place next time. Not necessarily I will want to start with a 3D game because I do think I can like use Figma or Sprite at level 1 out of 100. But using Blender and doing 3D stuff, that I can use that in level 0.5 out of 100. So it may be even more difficult to do animations and stuff there. Anyway, that's a bit of a digression. I'm just trying to say, if I were to work even in somewhere in Ubisoft, be part of like an Assassin's Creed project, something like that, it's not that I need to be able to make every type of the game. I'm sure there will be people there that will give me so much tooling that will help me level design and build something cool there. Trust the tools. We are building on the shoulders of giants, and one block at a time, you will be able to make the complex game of your dreams. Not that my submission for the next game jam is going to be like Assassin's Creed. That's something that takes thousands of people to make over generations now of gameplay iterations, but it's easy to feel overwhelmed by the Kenny starter and be like, how will I get to that point? And it's gonna be step by step and by taking help from others. Right, so that's it for maybe something about the GDQuest as well. The thing with a lot of the courses that, including the one that we went through last time, is they can leave you in a starting point where you can start customizing into the vision that you have for your game. And in the end, with the theme that ended up being the GameJam theme, I thought that maybe their 2D game dev module for this, making the items float, was the one that would be more similar to the gameplay mechanics that I have in mind. So the 2D course is actually more fleshed out than the 3D one. It has more examples. Later, they get into telling a story, visual novel style. So if you wanted to write a visual novel, maybe that's the one that you'd go through to understand the fundamentals, and then start from your endpoint into pivoting this into what you want to deliver in the end. I think that's quite cool. So GDQuest, keep an eye out for them as well. I guess what I'm trying to say is it's important to find the quality content that will get you through the learning parts and be able to customize, to practice, then customize to fulfilling your vision in the end. And game jams can allow you both, it can give you both the time constraint, the pressure to say, all right, 4 days, that's it. I need by this time on Tuesday to have this uploaded and released. So be ruthless, be realistic with how many features, how many gameplay ideas do you want to add, and also put your brain in the blender a little bit, trying to think of how to fit the theme. The theme for this one was built to scale, and immediately I did have ideas about software engineering and web dev. So there is this concept of having your stack or your infrastructure or your architecture being vertically scalable. That's the old school way, where it's like, oh, there is one server, and if it needs to do more stuff, if it needs to do more calculations, if it needs to handle more traffic, I will just make that one server beefier, like better CPU, more memory, more hard drive, and that's it. The problem is that there is a limit of how big you can make any single machine, and therefore what's usually better, almost always better, and much more common nowadays is to achieve horizontal scalability. So instead of having the one beefy machine, you have modestly sized machines, but you can spin them up on demand. So instead of just having one server, you have 4 and split your traffic through them. Because the machines are small, and there is realistically no limit on how many of those machines you can have. If you can replicate from 1 to 2, then in theory you can replicate from 2 to 4 to 8 to 16 to 256 to thousands. It covers much more ground. You'll end up into the physical limitations of there are no more servers in the world for my stuff months later, practically never. Than you would if you were just horizontally scaling and saying that your one server, I want it to be the beefiest server possible. You will run into that bottleneck, the how beefy can my one server be bottleneck. You'll run into that faster than I cannot have any more replicas. So that's the first thing I think about when I think about scaling. So I was thinking that you could make a game where you are an engineer or a principal software engineer or a software architect or whatever, and you need to tackle problems in a way where you need to either have the one beefy thing that can do everything and is super powerful, or delegate through 4 replicated things, something like that. But for my game design knowledge and game coding abilities, that's way too much. Like I would need to spend like maybe 2 weeks thinking about how I would go about translating that into gameplay terms, and then 2 years into making it into an actual game. So I went for what I always go for, puns. So scale, meaning something that a fish may have, or a worm or a dragon, or maybe even a snake. They set their scales sometimes, and that's why my game is maybe a sad story about a snake that was made to produce to set its scales and produce this super rare metal, composite metal, magic metal. And even with that in mind, I was trying to think, so what's the extra flavor there? You could have the snake start from, or the worm or the dragon or whatever you want this mecha thing to be. You could have 3 styles of gameplay, a bit like Spore. So you start as the small organism, and then there is different gameplay when you mature, and then there is different gameplay when you are like an ancient dragon or something. So you're kind of, maybe the most basic gameplay would be this. as a little tadpole snake or whatever you want to call it. You just swim through and eat stuff. I think that's the most like Spore. And then you have slightly different gameplay. Maybe you go around in caves and you need to dodge more creatures. The creatures attack you, for example, instead of just... I was just seeing if this is a bug, but no, the things despawn normally. So what was I saying? Yeah, so first stage, exactly what you're seeing. Second stage, you're in a cave and you have like enemies attacking you because you're a valuable dragon. And then last stage, when you're an ancient dragon, you're up against cities. Like the world is the level. So it's also the pan of where the scales, the dragon scales, are the important thing. But the scale of the game changes from stage 1, tadpole, to stage 2, normal dragon, stage 3, ancient dragon, an aquarium or something like a contained pool, to a big cave, to the world. That's also playing into the scale. I would love to do that, but again, I didn't have time to do those things. I didn't have much time to do more powers for the snake or at the enemies. I would love to do that, and maybe that's the thing that we'll try to code today. Probably not. We'll probably just add sound effects and try to keep the high score, and that's gonna be it for today. But we'll see. All right. So this is pretty much it for my preamble. Maybe I'll do takeaways in the end, maybe, because I kind of talked about them. I'll recap them. Make sure to close this, not have it running. No, I'm sure it's fine. So we've done this, we've done this. You may have noticed that when you pick up coins, there is a sound, but when there is game over, there is no sound, and that's the thing that we're gonna do now to get into some code. So this is where you play the sound as well. This is what I used in my game, and that's where copy and pasting comes into play for sure. Also interesting how they don't despawn the thing, they just make it invisible. So when you pick this up, you may be able to hear a sound even though my desktop audio is quite low. Trust me, there is a sound playing, which is great. The score gets added twice, so that's a little bug to fix. Which we may fix later. Anyway, the point is that the hero script, when we see that we've entered the scale, hero is a Godot scene, which has its own script, and it has a collision shape. So this is its collision shape, collision snake. We have the scales, and I did have quite a lot of different scales to use. Maybe the scales would mature over time or something like that. We'll see. The scales have their own collision shape. When these intersect, according to the layers they're in, then something happens. And I did add a script there, so on a timer, the collision will start. So because the scales pop off the snake, they spawn exactly where you are, so you're already overlapping the area. So I give it a buffer time of I guess 1 second here before I turn on collisions, essentially, which is quite cool. Well done, me. Anyway, if it's after the buffer time, and therefore it means that you can trigger these on area entered events, and it's a skill thing, then I get the parent and play the game over, run the game over method there. So I'm wondering, I guess I should just go to the level script and play it there. So here's where I want to play a sound. And we've said that we're playing a sound when we are spawning a scale as well. So that's the thing I can copy and paste here. So on Game Over, I can play the asset sounds Game Over sound that I have here. This one. And then that's it. Game Over sound is going to be playing. The update score is the score plus the value. Right. This would be the equal sign to fix that bug. Sure. So let's see. Spawned, and if I hit it again, there should be a sound. I'll look for a spike in the desktop audio. I think there was something, so I'm gonna say that it happened. Cool. Quick one. Next, we want an explosion to happen. The cool thing about itch.io is that they do have quite a lot of free stuff as well. Explosion. Or paid stuff, of course, like paying for stuff is still very, very something I do quite often. And in fact, I do use the JOHNNIFY premium revenue as my budget of how many things I can put back into buying stuff for the streams. So I could buy something. But buy it for free. Let's see what we can find here. But maybe we won't even do that. I just want to show this because we do have some particles. We have these particles that come off as thrusters. Let's say that the snake is making some waves as they move. It's a nice highlight indicator. So we could make an explosion out of that. I'm sure GDQuest will have a tutorial on how to use the particle system to make like a nice explosion at some point. But let's have a quick look on what they look like. This is the scene of the thrusters. They look like this, and they have CPU particles, which aren't even... I think this is a shader, I suppose. And I could just copy this to make an explosion and have it play for a while and then move on with my life. Maybe. So maybe I can copy that instead of just playing the explosion there. So yeah, let's try that. We have the zip visual effects. We have the main thruster. We don't have a zip anymore. Let's see. Here, explosion, let's call this. And let's say that this is hero explosion. And let's try to spawn it, I guess. Let's unattach the script. Let's call this hero explosion 2. can attach it again and have a look at what the script does. It just messes with the particles, which is good. I don't think it's doing anything clever with how fast you're going. So my question is, may I make the level script spawn this? Do I use this? No. I was thinking to restart the game, I may need to respawn the hero, but in the end, I'm just reloading the current scene. Easy. So let's preload hero explosion thing. And say in game over, let's spawn it somewhere and then we'll need to figure out where to spawn it actually. Maybe we'll actually do it. I don't know, but the hero disappears. Whoops. So on game over, let's instantiate this. And add it as a child. And see what happens. I expect it to be added in like the top left. Didn't expect that. It must be because it's not attached to a sprite or something. So I will do something different. Let's have a look at the thing we bought. We got from the asset store. It does look old school. It seems like it gets stuck in the last frame. Interestingly enough. That one's intense. Do we want the intense one? Sure. So let's try this one. What do we want to do? Instead of doing all these things, let's keep the hero explosion, I guess. Nah, delete all of this. Forget it ever happened. But keep this explosion. Should be in like VFX. Let's make a VFX directory in assets. We have this directory. drop in this. Name it Hero Explosion. And it's got the sprites, which is cool. How do we do that? Maybe animated sprite is enough. But I don't want there. I want a new scene that is gonna be an animated sprite. And I want to save it as Hero Explosion. And save that. In oh, is it still in assets? Sure. And I guess it will be missing sprite frames. Sure. And where will that be? What if I try to drop all of this here? Nope. What if I try to drop all of this here? Nope. It must be something here. Just need to Google it. Let's see. This seems like something I've done at some point. Oh, a new thing appeared at the bottom. They claim. If we click here. Oh, here, the default animation. Sure. This thing. And it is saying drag this image here. So I was kind of close. Kind of close. So you can see it playing here now. Awesome. Let's see if we do like 30 frames per second. Maybe too much. 15. Looks about right. Should be divisible by 2. Right, we have something. Let's say it doesn't loop. And does it auto start? Guess we can play it on with a script here the moment when it's spawn. So if we attach a script, already, surely we have something that does already. Will it be itself? I think so. So play default. It's this branch, so it will have this method, and we have the default animation here, so it should play. Ah, autoplay on load. Sure. If you put it that way. Right, what do we do with this? I was saying that the main level does this, but maybe that's not quite gonna work. Let's have the hero do it. They are exploding after all. And I need to have this open. Hey. It's like we have this. I want the explosion scene, and I'm gonna find it just by drag and drop in this scene here. And then I am gonna instantiate this explosion scene. Add it as a sibling. So when this gets deleted, we will be fine. Let's call it instance. And its position should be our position. So let's see if that worked. Yeah, nice. Oh, and it doesn't clear in the end. There must be an effect to clear it in the end. But hey. Try it again. I think we'll pick like a different explosion just for the fun of it. Yeah, works. And I could go to a sprite and then amend the explosion, but I think that looks pretty cool. What else do I want to do here? I can add an event at the end, I guess. So we would need a script. But is there another thing that I would want? Let's give the velocity to the explosion instance, see what happens. bosses. They don't have velocity. I guess you needed like a body or something to export it to that velocity. I was thinking that it would keep like going some way, but anyway, I think that's good enough. What else do we want? Maybe a different explosion. That's what we were talking about. Is there another one that we liked more? Maybe we can add this explosion to the scale explosion to reestablish our learnings. So we have this. Let's call it scale explosion. Scale explosion. I don't want this. I don't want this. Don't want this either. And let's say that we want this one, the 1Z. Just add the sprites in there. And then clear all of these guys. And paste the other animations, these frames. And we can look in 2D how that looks. Nice and dirty. And much like we did in our hero, we have like a scale thing. Yeah, so instead of just doing the Q3 thing here, we can do the explosion instant stuff. In the explosion instant stuff, the explosion will be reloading it again. The scale explosion this time. So this should be correct. Let's try again. Yeah, so explosions for the egg and our hero, and we still have this remaining. We can subscribe to an event to play when the animation ends, but hey, that's too much. Cool. We did this. Next up, remembering the high score. Let's see how we do with that one. And I have this blog post from Game Dev Artisan who actually has a great YouTube video that pretty much goes through the blog post, which is something I've thought about doing actually. So well done on them on actually putting it out. I just find making the short form videos so tough. Blog posts are slightly easier for me to write, believe it or not. Doing the recorded videos is hard for me. Live streams are easiest for some reason. I do get into a more comfortable zone talking to people in the chat. So what are we talking about here? I have some rudimentary logic on counting, if you look at the top left, how many scales you've gotten, and that's your score essentially. I don't know if there's going to be anything more complicated in the future, but however many scales you have, that's your score. And what I want is for whenever it's game over, would actually remember your previous scores, maybe not a leaderboard or something, because you'd only be playing with yourself. But we could say whether you've just achieved a high score or remind you that your high score was like 5 or something like that. But the way we are replaying is we reload this the scene, which is an easy way to just reset the state, like clear everything, including the score. But we lose track of what our highest score ever was. And a way to do that and actually persist in between sessions is to use something that Godot calls resources. So that's what the article is talking about, and we will be creating not the use, maybe the high scores resource. Maybe we'll have other scores in the future, I don't know. We'll see, but let's create yet another directory here. Call it resources. And in here, I think all we need is just a script. They say the same thing. They want a script, great. And create new script. Let's call it scores. And it's actually going to extend resource. And we're going to give it a name. Fail. So class name scores extends resource, and we're gonna do some stuff to explain where we're gonna save these things. We need to implement a save function and use the resource saver that Godot makes available to the global. Let's save it as scores. Doesn't really matter, but why not give it a good name? And in this example, they're pretty much saving the sliders that the user can have for more sound effects, louder sound effects, or use this input or whatever else they want here to remap some keys. But all we want for now, would we export this? Probably not. I'd say we just have a var for score, like high score, which is going to be an integer which can be inferred because it starts as 0. And load or create. We're going to tell Godot if this is not available, how do we start? And it's going to start with this being 0, because that's what we're saying here. And the resource is going to be scores. Maybe I'd call it scores resource to make it clear. Nah, just scores. And it is going to be returning the scores resource, and it is going to save it to like scores. Restore it from there if it exists. Else, it's going to create a new one. It's going to be instantiated like this. Looks like this is going to work. And then somewhere else, you're saying that the game menu is going to have access to this. So what is going to have access to this? On ready, it's going to do something. All right. So for now, it's our level. It's our main level that knows the score for sure. But to know the high score, what do we do? I guess we could have the current score there. Maybe it will make it easier. Will that update it? Probably not. Let's say scores resource. And they want us to say that this is gonna be scores. Maybe stats. Let's call it stats. And then in the level, this. Cool. Let's clear this. Hope that we didn't mess things up too much. Stats resource is gonna be this, and on ready, we're gonna say that the stats resource is gonna be this. But instead of implementing the onReady function here, can I just do like onReady stats resource do this, and then it will know. I think it will just work. Right, and then oh, they have an if here. Interesting. But why? Not clear. But during game over, let's see. We can say if score is bigger than stats resource score high score, then the stats resource high score should be the score, and then the stats resource we're gonna save. Looks like it. And then in our UI, we can have another section for high score. Maybe not. Take it back. I take it back. Let's look at our script. Let's say var as high score is high score. And then we'll use that. the high score text is gonna be it's a high score. If is high score, else it is gonna be this. Cool. And another new line, and we do the high score text. All right, crazy enough to work. So first time playing, our high score is 0, so we should see the high score thing immediately. Our first try. It's a high score. Great. Could do some fireworks or something, confetti. Let's play again. Let's see if we are still in one, no high score. Whoops. So that doesn't sound correct. If the score is bigger than the stats resource high score, what did we do wrong? So this should be saved in like stats for sure, but it doesn't matter. And then do call save, load or create, starts from 0. This should be 0 high score. And in the level, let's print my score. It's a high score. So it thinks the high score is 0, interestingly enough. But why? Is it because it's on local dev? Could be. Did we implement the save method? I think we did. Yeah, saved this, saved it here. Load or create. Tries to get it from here, or else creates a new one. So what's the problem? Could be that it's the debug thing. It is cute we're having like the high score, to be honest. It's a high score because I don't think people will play this like many times. Very rudimentary. But why? Stats resource, it's this. What else? Do we need to export it? That has to be it. If you don't export it, it doesn't actually save it. I was thinking that you export things that you want to mess with in the editor, and I never want to mess with the score. Like I always want people to start from 0. I wouldn't tweak this for like better game feel or something. Ah, that was it. I needed to export it. Cool. So let's see it again. Let's try to beat the high score by doing 2. We get the high score. Then if we don't get a high score, it doesn't say you got a high score, it just says high score 2. All right, not too bad. We learned something. And one last thing. It's the game level. The level here. I'd say if the game over UI is visible, always reload the scene instead of thinking about it. You can't escape to the main screen or something. You can never see it again. So let's try it again. Let's see if it persists during debug runs, because I think it should. Yeah, high score 2. Has successfully persisted, and I can press anything to restart. Cool. Cool. I think I'll make a little commit here. Sounds, don't need all these UI sounds. So all I need to commit is like a million things, including the explosions. So let's talk about them. Let's link them. Ansimuz. And we could take this in a sprite as mentioned. Get ignored, the builds, we're ignoring readme. The explosions are committed. I think everything's good. The preview GIFs, do we need them? Maybe not, but no harm in leaving them. No harm in leaving them. Can find this code with JOHNNIFY Premium, the private JOHNNIFY org with lots of SvelteKit stuff. All right, I do want to leave some time to actually upload this to it. We did both, and I may leave it at that. I do have, just to talk about this a bit more. One of the ideas for mechanics that I had is that the scales mature. So the scale looks like this when it first spawns, but if I go to the assets, I've selected 2 more forms that it may have. So it can also look like this. This is the default one. It can also look like this on the top right here. And it can also look like this, the scary one. I think this may make them look too much like power-ups, but as they mature, they change their texture, they look like this, and they are worth more points. And if there was like an HP mechanic, then they would also be doing more damage to you. If it wasn't one hit, your game over, then this low one would be doing the less damage. This one would be doing more damage, and this would be doing, maybe this one would always be the game over screen. But then maybe if you have like a couple of them in proximity, then they get picked up or they combine and then they get clear from the screen. That would be fun to do, but that's just something I want to briefly talk about. Feel free to play the game and suggest little features that you may want to see me add here. But for now, we'll just talk about this. We could also add a start screen, so you press the button and then the game just starts. Which I think is fine. I think we may do just a short episode here, just to upload the little explosions in game over screens in the end. The bug fix, it's a bit too much, actually. Might press anything and you restart the game. Needs a timer. So maybe that's the thing to fix. So maybe wisely, I did say that if there is a handling input and you can see the game over UI, you can actually press anything and reload the scene, restart the game, but maybe you need like a cooldown timer there. So let's create a timer for that. And I have a timer in the scales, for example. So I can take that and say game over timer. And what do I do there? And restart, let's say. Can understand what this is. Can restart is this. And we can say and can restart here. Which will flip this back to false. And reload this in. I guess it automatically will become false due to this. You don't need to do anything. But when will this happen? We'll create a timer here. When on game over, comment this. Instead of collision timer, this is going to be the game over timer. And the wait time will be 1. 1 second. Maybe 0.6, a bit over half a second. And we want to connect a method. And we want to say can restart is now true. So I should be able to play the game normally. And I pressed the button a few times. I don't know if you heard me. Maybe I will let it be for like a second, actually. And the point is that if we do have mechanics where you need to like restart or something, then if you were playing the game and pressing buttons, it's not gonna restart the game immediately without you looking at your high score or whatever, taking a breather. But still, you can press any button to get back into the action because it's a simple game you'll want to replay kind of quickly. Yeah, I think maybe 2 seconds of thinking about it. Maybe 1 is fine. Will be what we want to do here. So let's say that we did. And I think that's it. I will talk about Godot again, finish with like a bit of a chat. Let me know in the chat if you want me to see me add anything to this, or if you have questions about the game. The reason I've been trying out Godot and why I'm quite happy with what we've managed to do here is that it's super lightweight, super portable. I have a Mac Studio here, which is a heavy machine, but it is a Mac. And it does the job. It's amazing for web dev in particular. Couldn't live without it. But famously, Mac doesn't have the best reputation with games. Lots of engines like the popular ones like Unreal Engine really want a dedicated graphics card in order to be able to actually do some job there. And I have been keeping tabs on Unreal Engine. I have been trying it, but it's just so slow, so sluggish, and it crashes very, very, very often. So even though their latest patch releases have been all about improving the performance with Mac Silicon and Macs in general, it may be true, I just don't feel it's workable. And Godot, super workable, it's so lightweight that it feels like even I can do game dev in it. Also, I suspect that with Unreal Engine and the sort, copy-pasting code is quite hard. It seems like version control is not a first-class citizen there. They do have very dedicated systems there, but they're all about, oh, you need to spin up your own version control server, which I'm sure if you've done it once, it becomes easier, but I haven't done it once and it's too complicated for me. I just want to put stuff on GitHub, you know, like I've been doing throughout my career. And you can definitely do that with Godot. The repositories, the resulting code is quite small, works with GitHub out of the box. I have tried the Unreal Engine GitHub thing, which existed. I haven't quite managed to get it to work. Maybe I just need someone to just tell me, this is what you commit, this is what you get ignored, this is how it works, and then it's going to be fine. I just don't know it, and it perfectly made sense when I tried Godot. And being able to version control is huge because I want to be able to abandon a crazy idea. So if I try to implement something and it doesn't quite work, I want to be able to undo. I want to be able to just revert to the previous states that I had. While with Unreal, I found that very often I would try to do something and it doesn't work, and I would want to move back to the previous state that things were working a bit better, and I wouldn't be able to. The undo history would be undone, and I wouldn't be able to get back to that point, which makes me a scared game dev, and you cannot make a great game being scared. So with Godot and version control, I found it easier to experiment. I found myself being more willing to make some mistakes, even though, you know, you may see this game and you may play this game and you could be like, it's not much to look at, but hey, it's something. It's my first game that's public, and I'm proud of that. Right. So, any other takeaways? The community is lovely. Some of the tutorials that I've seen, especially by GDQuest, are very, very high quality. But I've started looking into GDQuest maybe a year or 2 years ago, and the quality bar is even higher. I think the Godot community is really growing, blossoming even. There is even more great content out there. While I did find that for Unreal stuff, and even Unity stuff, it's so hard to find good people to learn some from. So keep that in mind. General takeaways for game dev, it's definitely don't think you're too big to make a simple game. Another one of the ideas I had is to go through Doom Guy, which is the John Romero book, autobiography, and find, I made note of every game that John talks about in that book, and I was like, maybe I'll go through every game that John Romero ever made. And at the start, it's just a climbing game where it's a person super scaler trying to go through a skyscraper or something. A silly game, simple game that would be very easy to make nowadays with the tooling that we have available. And I'm not beyond that. Making a simple game and getting it all the way through is very educational. The thing is, tying it to a game jam made me actually push through and publish, because if I didn't have the game jam, I would think, all right, would anyone really want to play this game? Because it's just a collectathon snake without a real spin at this point. I would be like, oh, I do want to have the 3 different gameplay elements, the one with the bigger scale, the bigger enemies, and that sort of thing. But then, realistically, maybe I'd never get there. And having the small goals, the small scope, did allow me to go through all the way, figure out how do I export this? How do I export this as an HTML game so you can play it in your browser as you're viewing the game jam projects? What type of cover art do I need to produce? It allowed me to go through the full experience, even though the game itself is very modest. I guess my next goal is maybe, I guess I'd be sticking with stuff I can release on itch.io, but the next big goal would be something like I'm actually trying to publish on Steam, for example, because I imagine that's going to be 100 times more complicated. But the way you get there is by slowly making the building blocks that you'll be using in every game, like the camera systems, the motion systems, the physics engines, all of that, your start screens, your credit screens, your save logic, this resource that I just did live to hold the high score. This is the first ever like user-related persisted storage state that I've ever made, and I'm sure I'm gonna use something like that in literally every game. So the more games you make all the way, the more stuff you learn to make your dream game or your MVP game at some point. So I suggest giving it a try. These are the takeaways, I would say. And that leaves us. Again, I'll ask if you want to see even more Godot and game dev, let me know. Next time will be Svelte and SvelteKit for sure, will be front-end and web dev, but it's great to see people interested in this because I'm interested in this. I've said in the past that I won't say the story again, but gaming is what got me into software engineering, coding, hacking. I found it fascinating, and I just found the web dev career more realistic for me back in the day, like 20 years ago. But it's always been the one career that got away. I definitely think I have more than one really fun game in me, and I'll get there. And maybe it starts today. Maybe it started with this GameJam. So I'll just play the tiny game here. Although I do suggest instead of watching me play, go and play yourselves and actually use the link that we have in the description here and confirm. I won't actually use it because we delivered a feature that I'm gonna upload after the end of this stream. So gamepad support as well. I would love to make this responsive for mobile too. So let's see, can we get 3? Again, hitting the scales gets you. You don't want to hit them. You want to spawn them, but you don't want to hit them. All right, we got to 3, so we can end on a high score. It's a high score. We did explosions today. That was fun. I should bring in custom fonts and stuff here. But hey, those are things for another day. Let me know what you want to see next. If you are interested in web dev, we have tons of playlists and links, and we'll be doing something fun with SvelteKit, I'm sure, this coming Friday. Thanks again for spending a bit of time with me. Doing this GameJam has been a pleasure. I will wish you a lovely rest of the week and see you all on Friday. Bye.